30th version of Ask the Coach. I'm Angela Cripps, the MD of the Recruiting Gym. I've got 3 new coaches for you today. And I did the stats yesterday. 120 coaches have been on Ask the Coach. 62% of them are women and from 13 different countries so far. So I will be asking everyone in the green room afterwards where you're actually from so that we can add to that list as well. I'll get them to introduce themselves in a second, but let's explain how this works. If you've missed the other 79, where have you been? Okay, what happens is we've had 6 questions already asked. 3 from the coaches that they're getting asked all the time, 3 mainly from the Recruitment Agency Expo that we've been at this week and topics that came up. So what we're going to do, get them to answer them. But if you can't stay for the whole 45 minutes, we've got an order at the moment, 1 to 6, but feel free to vote on them if you want to. If you can't stay for the whole time, vote it up the list and we'll answer it quicker if you've got a shoot off. That's how it works. So while you're looking at that and voting on it, I can see we're live on LinkedIn as well. Yes, doesn't always work. So I'll get the coaches to introduce themselves. Lewis, I'm coming to you first because I know you love going first.
Typical. Angela, thank you for having me again. To everyone, happy Friday. It's been a slug this week, but we're there. We've got to the end. Special week for me. So I'm an enterprise business development director in the enterprise team at Total Jobs, the Stepstone Group. And I am an advocate for ADHD. So throughout the session, you'll probably see the buzzy, energetic self. And obviously, this week has been Neurodiversity Celebration Week. So it's been a busy week within the network I'm part of, CAN.
What does CAN stand for?
It's Champions of Accessibility Network.
Thank you. Love that. If you want to put the link, anything that you mention as well, coaches, if you want to put links to them, anything you want to promote in there, stick them in the chat and then I'll transfer them over to LinkedIn either during the show. But I must admit, I'm not that multitasking at the moment and it's a Friday lunchtime and it has been a busy week. So it might go in afterwards. Okay. If you do want to access the other Ask the Coach sessions over here on Crowdcast, there's a green button. So feel free to click that. It's free to sign up and you get access to all of those 120 coaches and all the questions that they've answered over the last 2.5 years. Cecilia, if you could introduce yourself, I'm welcome.
Thank you so much, Angela, and hello, everybody. I'm Cecilia Crossley. I'm the founder of a social enterprise called From Babies with Love. And we provide employee engagement gift services to HR with an impact-led lens. And it's that work I'm here to talk about today. It led to the creation of a podcast called How HR Leaders Change the World. We feature chief HR officers talking about how their commercial HR leadership, including all of their talent acquisition and onboarding work, all your work, how it's also driving positive social change and ESG results. As Angela's just invited, I'll pop a link to that in the chat for everyone that can listen wherever you get your podcasts. But I'll be sharing a bit more of the detail of that specifically from a TA lens today.
Fantastic. And I must admit, that was one of the discussion points this week, how TA, HR, recruiters, all those people responsible for finding people their right role, we have the opportunity to change the world, definitely. So let's grab that and grab that attention. And then Glenn, welcome back. But I don't think you've done an Ask the Coach yet. You've done a Meet the Expert, you've done a daily workout. Now you're an Ask the Coach.
Yeah, now I'm on Ask the Coach. It's like the hat trick now.
Yeah.
I've got all 3.
You get to take the ball home.
Yeah, exactly that. Exactly. Well, listen, again, thanks for inviting me along, Angela. I really appreciate it. I'm Glenn Martin. I'm the founder and CEO of a human-centered talent solutions consultancy called Nevermind the Job Spec. So we also have a podcast, Nevermind the Job Spec. I'll put the link in there. Got some really super cool guests on there. And whenever I say human-centered, people say, oh, okay, what do you mean by human-centered? So human-centered in our world, in talent solutions consultancy, is basically the fusion of really positive candidate experience, talent brand advocacy, and values-based hiring, which I know we'll come on to later on in the session. So yeah, that's me. I'm really happy to be here.
I'm loving that you've said that. One of the speakers that I had on the panel at the Recruitment Agency Expo was advocating that human side, and we talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the bad was the candidate experience as well. That was the key thing that came up for them, and they've recently been a candidate themselves looking for a job, and so they gave lots of examples. So we will get into all of that. The first question, let me just check. No, we're all good. We're going to start answering. So yes, Lewis, you are going first. I'm going to put you up on the spotlight, on the focus. So this question is, how do you find working as a neurodivergent in a strategic sales roles and also perception in the workplace? So if you'd like to share your experiences, that'd be fabulous.
It's like a broken record, this question.
Well, this week, probably, because
yeah, it certainly is. I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 10, and I mean, at that time, going through your teen years, you don't think much about it or how it's going to affect your work and so on. Being in the industry I'm in for the last sort of 10 plus years, you sort of learn and understand more about how it affects your work. So you might be sort of hyper focused, but sometimes be easily distracted. But I guess I'm going to lean on again, and I'm one for big praise, is things like the network I'm a part of, Champions of Accessibility, which recently MIM has appointed me on events and promotion within the network. It's something I'm so passionate about. As the older I've got, the more I've learned about myself, and dealing in the role that I deal in, working with enterprise level clients on a new business basis. The term neurodiverse superpower comes into play. So across the business, I've always known for building relationships, like when I met yourself and Joe Phillips at Wreckfest, and high levels of activity in relation to energy and positivity. And I feel like I've honed in on using that to the best of my ability and tried to work more on my own personal development with understanding client needs and really hyper focusing rather than being distracted by it. But I still have to voice the network I have around me, not just Can, but also my managers, Will, Rob, and a consultant for the team, Nikki, who lean on what I've got, the superpowers I've got in that sense. And when I use superpowers, for anyone coming in last minute, I don't mean I've got a Batman car or I can go invisible.
I bet you've got a cape though, haven't you?
Well, only for my wife I have. But ultimately, these people, I've grown a little trust with these people to understand what triggers me, what makes me work more in a positive light. But also, Angela, it's about authenticity, trying to get that word out and being yourself. And I've done the same on LinkedIn. I've been open because I want to help people, support people in the same place. Yeah. Because in the last couple of years, recruitment, job boards, talent solutions have gone through a different change in workforces where we're looking at diversity and inclusion. And I know we're looking at sustainability later as well, where we've looked at ethnicity and gender. But there's one thing that's missing, it's neurodiversity. And this is where I'm like, right, I'm changing the world this year within our network, in our workforce, but also moving forward with whatever I can do with support. So speaking to other charities, how we can train leadership teams on how to look after people from a neurodivergent background, and all in all, make it a safe space to work, whether it be working in a particular area of an office to what triggers that particular person. And like I say, I'm here to change the world. So for me, people, support networks, and be you. Don't hide behind the cupboard. Don't hide behind the screen. Be you. Be authentic. And people will rise to that and want to support you. So, and again, for the chat on LinkedIn, if there's anyone on this call that's neurodivergent or isn't sure about managing someone that's got a neurodiversity, feel free to reach out. I'm always here to support with a smile on my face, of course.
Well, I'm thinking Cecilia and Glenn are probably sitting there thinking, okay, that's someone from my podcast I can be talking about there. So I love it when we bring people together that don't necessarily know each other, because by the end of this, please do connect. We've got everyone's LinkedIn details in the chat there, so click on them, do connect and do reach out, because it has become something that has gone from a let's not talk about it, let's ignore it, to actually this could be something that's really helpful and useful. And if we understand it, we can make it a superpower for people and utilize their skills, because it does give you those extra elements. And like with all of us, there's strengths and there's development areas, aren't there? So we play to people's strengths, we can all be so much better and so much happier by doing that. How difficult was it? Maybe let's go back 5-10 years. Well, first of all, were you aware of your ADHD at that point?
Yes. I was diagnosed when I was 10, and I was aware of it, more family-based. I didn't really share it with anyone because, as far as I was concerned at that point, it would be embarrassing for me. Going a bit deeper, it affected my life with jobs when I was sort of 18. I started off, funny enough, my manager, or one of my managers, Rob, now I worked with over 20 years ago, serving OAPs coffee in a restaurant, telling them how young they looked. But that was my superpower, to make people happy.
Yeah.
I didn't think much of it, but you did get called names like, and I mean, I didn't think much of it. I loved the attention. I called a nutter, crazy, but in a like a jokey way. But one thing I always do, and sometimes it can be a negative, is use my energy to sort of bring a positive light to other people. And I think I've started to realize it more over the last 4 or 5 years. But I think growing up, there was a lot of challenges, Angela. Like, it was really tough, but you don't understand it then because you think you've got something wrong with you.
Yeah.
In this day to day, there is so many people that don't get it. They don't understand. And that's outside of the workforce from my part. And thank God for my wife. She understands it. She's learned all about it. But yeah, the superpowers won that scenario over. But yeah, youth was tough. Teen years was tough, but a lot better now and more I understand.
Well, let's hope then for the next generation, they're not going to have it as tough. We're going to be more aware of it. We're going to see where, and we've identified these roles, and sales is definitely one that is great. There are so many people. We looked at it recently as well, but yeah, 25% of the recruiting gym team trainers who are all BIM recruiters are neurodivergent, and we're like, great, yeah, that's fantastic. We can all utilize their strengths, and they bring so much to the party. It's wonderful. So thank you for that. Thank you for sharing. And again, I haven't got the link for the CAN. If it's a network that people can join, if you could put that in, that would be fantastic. Wonderful. Okay, I'm coming to question 2, which would be Cecilia. So let's focus you. I'm not sure what happens to Lewis here when I click this button. There we go. It does work nice and smoothly. So question 2, hearing that sustainability is becoming a priority for HR, what are the key drivers and connections, especially for TA?
Thank you, Angela. Yes, just last week, I saw an article on HR Director, HRD Connect, with the byline, HR is the new priority. Sorry, sustainability is the new priority for HR. And I was sat here kind of going, yay, behind my screen, because I feel like I've been banging on about it for quite a few years. And that's very much come from the opportunity to listen to so many chief HR officers and other HR professionals in creating how HR leaders change the world. And I think just to start with, it's remembering, like, if I say the word sustainability to you, what do you think of? Because it's not
resilience, things that are going to stick, things that are going to be around for a long time.
Yeah, I like that because it's a really broad definition. But some people might think, oh, it's net zero, that's got nothing to do with me. But actually, if you look at the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, for anybody that isn't familiar with those, please go and Google them, and you'll see that the majority of them relate to people. It's not just the environment or the E in ESG. And indeed, I'm going to use another phrase there that is another bit of jargon that I hear a lot. We all hear a lot. ESG, environment, social governance. For those of you working for big companies, you no doubt have ESG committees and probably teams as well. So thinking about it from the breadth and also from the perspective that we are one species of people on one planet, and HR is human, and we're all working with people, and people are what make up businesses. Of course, these things connect. As I say, it all feels so obvious to me, and I think it's nothing new. It's not work that's not already happening. It's just applying a new lens and a new perspective. And in doing so, well, it's very rewarding, it's very inspiring, and it helps you build allies, relationships, and get those business cases signed off more easily is the other good thing I believe that comes from thinking about these two seemingly different topics together. So I thought about 3 drivers and 3 connections, and then in particular from a talent acquisition and also onboarding perspective, like what's the relevance for our audience here. And I recognise that some of you are working for big companies and some small, and perhaps some of the things I mentioned might feel, well, you don't have that team or you don't have that colleague. So, but I hope something I say resonates and perhaps plants a seed for further thinking and reflection. So the drivers, the first one I'd like to share is, well, the headlines. I'm sure all of us just see the headlines. I don't think I need to say anything more there. The second is investors. For those of you in particular that work for listed companies, I'm pretty sure your investors will be asking your leadership, your management teams to demonstrate impact-led KPIs, measurable changes that ensure, Angela, to your point, the longevity of the business and the longevity of, profitable business success. And I think, again, on the headlines, we've probably all read headlines about investors threatening to disinvest their shareholdings if, say, ESG progress is not made. So I think that investors are also a key driver. And the third one I'd like to share, and I'm really thinking about talent acquisition here, is Gen Z. I'm too old for Gen Z, so my knowledge here is limited, but I do read reports from the likes of Deloitte that measure what cohorts of talent in the Gen Z generation want and what they are thinking about in making their employment choices. And of course, their I can't say that now. There's an example for me, Lewis. Remuneration packages are a baseline factor. But studies from the likes of Deloitte show that they're making choices based on, if I use the word purpose, I use the word impact, these kind of words are all becoming fairly mainstream in business languages. So, what can you do to win that candidate to authentically and tangibly show that whatever is on the website about purpose and impact is real and is happening? Is going to put, I would say, any talent acquisition strategy at an advantage. So those are 3 drivers that I thought to share. And then 3 connections. Why does this matter for talent acquisition strategy? What's it got to do with TA professionals? Well, speaking to some of those drivers, there's a whole heap of new skills and job titles coming, arguably already here, that no doubt you're being asked to recruit. And some of those, I think, are evidently contributing to the E in ESG. I don't know if you have any of you have net zero directors, for example, that you're being asked to recruit. So I would expect that trend to grow and be part of your workflows. Gen Z, as I've spoken about, and also in respect of talent shortages that some of you may be facing in your market and just finding it really hard to get the right candidates in. How can you connect the dots between sustainability in your business and the role that people are applying for in ways that really showcase the impact you have and make you stand out in perhaps a new way that's not been done before? For example, what if a recruitment pack says, it's got, this is our business, this is what we do, this is why we're good in the world, whatever else normally goes in there. Here's your role, here's the role we're recruiting for, here's the key objectives and deliverables, and here are the sustainable development goals that this role is contributing to. With the little colourful goals.
Right down to the role, not just the company or your team, but your role, you could impact these ones. Love that.
I dream of a world where every single employee in every single organisation can connect their specific work objectives and therefore their day-to-day to-do list to those 17 goals. I just think we'll achieve them a lot faster. But, if we all do that, but thinking about actually, winning new talent into your business, I just think that's cutting edge standout stuff if you can do that. And then, yeah, to stop talking, to not talk too much, I just wanted to share that we have done an exercise, a digital map, if you will, a web page where you can scroll like across a deck of cards across the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and you can click into each one. It's like a zoomy inny outy page is my technical vocabulary. And you can see, you can therefore connect any of the 17 goals to different functions within HR, including talent acquisition. But you can also do it the other way around. You can filter by your TA area of expertise, and it will give you the top 3 goals to look at. So I'll stop there because I feel I've shared quite a lot.
Well, no,
but there is
great.
resource.
We don't always think of it this way. So I've put the link in there. I've gone to the 17 goals, and you're right. Look, events, actions that you can take, and these are the 17. And you are so true that so many relate to actual the HR side and the people side, and what we can do. We did do a whole week on this on the daily workout, so I will go back and find that. It will be in our DW likes. We would have wanted everyone to be involved in this when we had the summit here. I think it was Edinburgh, wasn't it? So I'll stop sharing that now. But what a great way to do that. The job description, to actually have the information on there as to how that links. And from a business point of view, Lewis, I'm going to come to you because Glenn and I represent definitely the SME side, but StepZone is massive. So there was a question in there that whether you've actually got was it no
sustainability?
Yeah, but a sustainability director, was it, Cecilia?
Oh, there's lots of different titles. There are chief sustainability officers now. Quite often, well, more and more I'm seeing chief people and sustainability officers. I don't know, perhaps there's somebody on the call that has one of those. And yeah, then reporting into that net zero director is quite a new, I would say, role title. Perhaps some of you have recruited one of those.
That was it, net zero director. I'm going to need to write it down to remember that. So Lewis, at StepZone, the bigger group, is any of this represented?
At the moment, I mean, it's not just with us, but I think it's with every business. One of the buzzwords is sustainability, because ultimately our population is aging, and aging quick. Going green as well, more key buzzwords. I think a lot of businesses at the moment are very much behind the curve. These are things that we're discussing on enterprise level clients. Certainly that it's on their to-do list, it's on their annual reports, it's one of their strategic goals. How they're going to get there is the question. And I mean, it's all part of our sort of way of offering a solution, is looking at the flawed approach of, if you don't meet these targets, what's going to happen? And Celia, you'll probably join in on supporting this, that if you don't meet them targets, out goes the EVP, out goes the employer brand, suddenly the workforce isn't happy, and then financial losses, projects aren't getting done. And again, following on from Celia's point, is everything that's going net zero and so on. These people, who are these people? Where are they? Where are recruiters or businesses going to hire these people from? It is going to be a firefight, a huge firefight. Yeah. So for me, I definitely think certainly our business and enterprise businesses are looking at it. And I can't comment on our specific business, but from other businesses and the intelligence I've got behind their TA teams and HR departments, it's there. But I think everyone's we don't know what to do. We don't know how we're going to meet that, or it's the budget and the investment. And let's remember, the economy is absolutely painful at the moment. So
it is. So maybe this is something, as soon as it starts lifting, all of those projects will get the go ahead. That will be the hope, won't it? They're all there, they're ready to go, and there'll be investment wins in there. Because like B Corp corporations, I went and looked at the list and split it down and looked at recruitment companies, and there was only about 30 on the whole list. Think of all the thousands and thousands of recruitment companies. So again, great differentiator for you to be able to do that. And there are going to be businesses that will only deal with B Corp corporations after a period of time. That's going to be part of their thing. So if you want to get on the PSL, that might be an element. Anyway, we could talk about this forever. I think we're going to have to do a separate webinar on that. I want to get Glenn in because this was something as well that was coming up this week at the expo around the CV or no CV. So is the future of this stable part of the application process on its way out? Because there's been lots of discussion around this. So what's your views?
Well, Angela, you're right. I mean, it surprises me how much debate this particular question generates. And, you know, people have their kind of like their professional view on it. People have just a genuine kind of like emotive reaction to the CV. And I think it's one of those ones where I was on a kind of LinkedIn thread just about a day or so ago, and it generated so much conversation for such a simple question, because I think the CV is, whilst it's a tool for some, maybe there's some degree of dependence for others. There's a certain degree of, from what I can see, sentimentality around, you know, if we let go of the CV, does that end some sort of era in kind of recruitment? So I kind of broke it down into, I guess, 5 streams where people have an opinion on CV, no CV, right? If you think about the first stream with the advent of kind of like skills-based and values-based hiring and interviews, so interviews and assessments based on skills and values, there would be an argument there that the CV is something that they're less dependent on. Flip to the other side, we've got, you know, kind of recruitment talent acquisition tech stacks that are reliant on CV as part of the input to those particular propositions, like ATSs. So if you remove the CV, what does that mean for that kind of technology and those technology providers? And interestingly, actually, on that LinkedIn conversation, a gentleman in Australia introduced, rather obvious, but the kind of geographical differences in terms of the use of a CV versus a resume. So he was from Australia, and he was like, well, look, you know, we still largely depend on the resume. It's not quite like the standard UK CV, but it's something that we really do value. Then you've got the kind of rep tech innovators who are basically trying to create platforms and software around the kind of new ways of working. And then I was tempted to group this into that particular 4th stream, but let's be fair, AI is a whole kind of stream on its own now, right? I mean, and as much as you're exhausted about talking about it, it is something that we do need to look at. And I think of this in the context of the developments of use cases for AI-enabled technology, right? So I'm not saying that AI is a massive game changer in kind of TA and recruitment at the moment, but there are specific use cases where AI-enabled kind of outcomes are becoming more commonplace. You've got those kind of 5 streams, and I think, for me personally, it's just illustrative of a market change. There's early adopters who will look to obviously try and change and innovate, and that's okay. There's the kind of majority that are still operating with the tools that are tried and tested, and, you know, are doing exceptionally well, and that's okay. The thing for me is not to make it 2 camps of, you know, kind of almost innovators and kind of Luddites, right? We all need to go on the journey of change, and I think we all need to contribute to the conversation around what that change will look like. But equally, we have to realize where maybe we're blocking ourselves from innovating when we become too reliant on a particular tool or way of working. And then if I just kind of zoom out on the kind of human aspect, if I said to all 3 of you, oh, could you send me an updated CV? I would bet that your first reaction is, oh, I ain't got time for that.
Where is it?
I haven't got the time. I honestly haven't got the time for that.
Oh, dear.
So there's the human element where we realize it's something we need, but oh God, the prospect of doing it, immediately you think, when can I do that over the weekend? Can I get it done in an hour? You know, and the human element there is, and certainly from a recruiter's point of view, and I wrote a blog about this in 2018, and it was based on CVs actually being, you know, impacting time efficiency in the process. Because as soon as you ask an individual for their CV, you know, you've got about a 2 to 3 day wait. But equally on the hiring managers, the hiring team side, if they're too dependent on seeing a CV, an updated CV before they'll move forward in the process, again, that's another, that's an impact on time efficiency. And I think, so there's those two elements, that human element, the sort of dependency and weaning hiring teams off the dependency of a kind of CV because of the perceived value it adds, moving them to a place where skills-based and values-based interviewing and assessments becomes kind of commonplace and they're comfortable with it. But equally, taking the admin burden off of people looking for a job. I mean, their time and effort should be put into conversations and networking, not spending valuable time putting together a CV, which realistically they don't want to do anyway. So that's kind of my thoughts around it, and I'd love to get Lewis and Cecilia and your Angela, your thoughts on where and how you value the CV.
Well, I was very lucky that I was a perm recruiter. I started out in the 80s with Blue Arrow, and we were taught to not focus on the CV because we did a full interview. We'd spend up to 2 hours with each candidate, and we would tell the client as well, look, I'll make sure you've got information to be able to interview from, but let's just book in the times and we'll put the best 3 people forward for you. So it took out that bias of the CV as well. We'd spent time with them. We knew whether they were going to be right or not. We knew the client, we knew the candidate, and that's how we did it. And it speeded up the process, exactly as you're saying there. I mean, Renu's got another comment there. CV is relevant.
I saw that. Yeah.
Industries, where employment gaps need to be explored.
Okay, so that's a whole thing right there. People's fixation on employment gaps. Anyway, but we'll come to that in a second. I think I'd like to get Lewis's opinion, right? Because my nephew's dyspraxic, right? He was asked for a CV. He was just like, where do I start with this? What do I do? This is something. It generally made him really agitated and uncomfortable, the prospect of doing that. So for somebody that identifies as neurodivergent, that the idea of actually putting together a CV could be really quite daunting. I don't know, just daunting. Yeah. What are you saying, Lewis?
Yeah, I was just about. This is like again a broken record. Companies are still behind the curve with this. Through research in my job, I tend to look through candidate experience on basically how the candidate will see for different enterprise businesses. And I feel like sometimes it's a tick box, just like all the other tick boxes. And I know when it comes to my question, I've got a lot to say about that. But I remember when I was 16, and I went to a local bowling alley with my CV that I'd typed out at the library and printed it off. And the one positive was you had that human touch, right? And people could understand you, whether you had a neurodiversity or you had anything that was a blocker to being in employment. If you'd done something, and I can see this happening, because I know that, again, Stepstone, we acquired recently video interviewing software where you can actually just go, hi, I'm Lewis, I have ADHD, I'm 38, although I look younger. I've done this for 10 years, this is what I'm doing, really hope you can give me an opportunity to meet. And you can be open and authentic with it. But in answering that question, Glenn, that people are behind the curve, they don't get it. And if senior leaders and C-suite stakeholders don't understand, whether it be ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, all of these types of things, how can they understand? For instance, I mean, I know a colleague of mine, his brother works in the IT sector and has ADHD. They love him because he is so hyper-focused in tech and coding. These are the niche talent that are out in the market, but they might be put on the side because they don't really understand that there's a blocker there because, he has that. So that might be a problem. And Glenn, what can I say? This is where we are today. But again,
this is it. This is it. My nephew, right, didn't get very good GCSEs. So that on the CV, that would form part of the main part of what they read. But his interest would be he's rebuilt a VW camper van by basically learning how to do that himself and actually constructing that from scratch. Now, for me, the latter there is going to be more valuable, right? So this guy understands mechanics of engines. He's got a brain, logic brain. He can actually build. But if we go with the traditional CV, they'd be like, yeah, didn't get maths, English, sciences, etc. So I think there's like you said, there's a piece here around how do we perceive people. And to Cecilia's point, right? If we're talking about, a kind of job description that talks about kind of sustainability goals, etc., are you going to really be able to convey that on a CV? Isn't that part of a conversation, interaction, kind of a broader collection of information from that individual where they can put free text in and really talk to why those sustainability goals are super important to them and why they're passionate about them, what they do in their kind of outside work life that really amplifies that. So, yeah, I'm kind of of the view that the CV will be around for a while, but I have a strong inclination that we're moving in a more progressive, innovative kind of journey.
Well, so definitely, it wasn't fit for purpose in the 80s. So the fact that it's still here, let's make sure we do other things instead. Right, I'm going to have to move us along, guys, unfortunately. So question 4, Lewis, you're staying on. So many companies waste time and money hiring someone that doesn't stay longer than 6 months. What could they do to make it more successful? Share your wisdom.
Oh, God, what a great question. It's time to talk about EVP again. So a lot of business
value proposition, yeah?
This is it. So if you think, whenever you go onto a company's website now, there's going to be a page for diversity and inclusion, sustainability, net zero, and these are all the benefits, and these are our values. I'm Joe Bloggs, and I joined Lewis Beaty Enterprises, and I'm told that we've got a strategy for neurodiversity. We've got different support networks. I'm going to get 50 days holiday, and this is a real attractive business, career progression and so on. I'm there for 3 months, and straight away I can't see the commitment of what they're saying.
Yeah.
In this world today, there is a lot of talking and not a lot of doing. And my point on that is businesses, and this is not every business, hide behind a few images, or they might hide behind, we've got this in place, but they're actually not actioning it. Now, I want to do a shout out actually to Universum for this, which is part of the Stepstone family. Who on Tuesday will be announcing the student rankings for early careers on basically the EVP and the employer branding, which I will share in the chat how you can join that.
Right.
Looking at businesses and how they're perceived by future talent, for instance, because they're going to build the future. But I think the only way companies are going to save money doing this is standing by their word and, what they're saying in this world today. We do this, but then actually make it happen. I think as well, in relation to the team, I think from an employer perspective, there are things like psychometric testing to understand if that particular person, their character fits into the culture of the business. Because ultimately, you don't want to put someone down the wrong side of the road, like they're not going into a business where they're not going to fit. And then again, we go down to the road of things like neurodiversity, diversity and inclusion, whether it be ethnicity or women in engineering, in IT, different areas. If someone's expected to get the same level of maybe salary, it may mean the same treatment. They need to follow through with that. And I think at the moment we're seeing things in our business especially when I'm going into meetings where with global heads of TA, employer branding managers, heads of DE&I, and there is true passion there, but sometimes the stakeholders a bit further up are putting their own blocker in the way. So they're like, we need to tick this box, so let's do that. But we haven't actually fulfilled this. And strategic business goals are failing. And all that is going to do in this world is not going to attract many people to your business. And the ones they do attract are probably not there for the right reasons, or they think they're there for the right reasons and realise they're not. So I think it's all built around EVP, not just saying it, doing it, walking it.
Yeah, you've got an incongruity between the two, haven't you? If it's like you're saying one thing but you're doing another, you've lost that individual so quickly that you've gone against it. I write onboarding programs, and we look at the values, and then we look at how can we build that in through the whole 6 months. How can we get them to live them, understand them? And it's the same with EVP. If you're saying these things, build it in, give them experiences within that first 6 months that prove what you've said. Otherwise you were lying, really, weren't you?
The onboarding needs to be structured as well. There needs to be clear goals and views set from the start, from the interview process. I'm going to do you want me to pass to you, Celia?
She's got something to say. Go for it.
It's just because I really resonate with what you're saying about the where there's a disconnect between the EVP and reality, and that is so much of what we do, which is why I just wanted to share an example of it. And it also comes back to your point about what you said earlier, as in, do we have to wait for the economy to be in a better place in order to work on sustainability? So this example will be an example of no, we totally don't. Working on sustainability can quite often save money, like, for example, just think about reducing waste. Tick, tick. But this example comes back to your point about EVP and a disconnect of someone's experience in onboarding. And I think this happens at so many companies, and probably everyone joining us today will be able to relate, which is why I thought to share it. So say, like, just before you join or when you join on your induction day, you get a little welcome pack of merch. And the merch is just landfill rubbish. Like, are you ever going to give that mug to Auntie Betty when she comes around for tea? No. No offense to plumbers, but it's such a missed opportunity for strategic communication that says to that welcome, to touch the heart of that new joiner, that says that stuff you read on the website, it's real. This is not a silver lining for sure you're going to stay, silver bullet for sure you're going to stay for 6 months. This is a small gesture, but one touch point that shows you we mean what we say. And it's money that's already being spent. So there's no new costs there. It's just transforming it. So I wanted to mention it and give an example, because this is what we do it from Babies with Love with lots of our partners. And how we do it, I'm going to use Angela in the recruiting gym as an example. So it would be like, dear Cecilia, welcome to the recruiting gym. These welcome treats for you are also funding education for a vulnerable child so that they can look to a bright future too. With best wishes, Angela and all the team. Now, to me, that's like going to connect with a lot of EVPs of that D&I page, that sustainability page, whatever it is, and actually connect with a new joiner in a way that shows the EVP in action. So I was chomping at the bit to share that example because you were making me smile as you were chatting.
Please do put your company page into the link. I know we've got your LinkedIn in there, but stick the company page. And I've recently gone through that process because Charlotte's just gone off on maternity leave. So I've bought some gifts from there for her to do that. I can't wait for the baby to actually arrive so I can send her some more. But that's what drew me to Cecilia, is the fact that it's about whatever I spend helps another child to develop and to learn and to go to them as well. I just feel so good about that. And so it's like, right, okay, we'll spend again.
I think as well, I wanted to add on off the back of it, I saw a note in the chat which got my brain thinking, is sort of interview techniques as well, because we're going back to, say, culture, questions that are going to ultimately provoke the candidate to make sure they align from business to candidate in some senses. And I know most businesses do exit interviews, but actually actioning something that when someone leaves, like actioning that, as you know, you've got tools at the moment like Glassdoor, which again is another gun to your EVP. If someone is going, I left here because it's all lies. And I think there's so much food for thought behind that. There really, really is. But again, look, we're changing the world, right? So
yeah, it's going to be hard, but we've got to stick with it. It's going to be important. Okay, Cecilia, I'm giving everyone the heads up. We've never done this, but we are behind. We might usually be 1 or 2 minutes over, but I'm loving this. So I hope my guests, you're happy to carry on, and we'll crack on with that. Just as a lovely slight aside that's popped up is the fact that actually We've got a lovely comment. I'll pick it up in a minute. Sorry, I typed it in. It's disappeared as I've gone to the questions. I'm going to have to go back to it. Right, Cecilia, this is yours. Our industry has a low barrier to entry. This was on the panel at the Recruitment Agency Expo. We're still not representational. We're all got a word today, haven't we? Of people. What can leaders do to make a difference and move the dial? So it'd be lovely to see from an HR point of view and someone that's not in the recruitment industry. I want an outsider's view of what we can do. Over to you.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, I think this just builds on some of the experience that Lewis and Glenn have shared in respect of neurodiversity and the CV as well, because that relates to accessibility as we've been discussing. And of course, you know, the openness and inclusion of any market includes all elements of diversity and inclusion. And also, I think the phrase social mobility needs to come up in this answer in terms of socioeconomic inclusion as well. And I'm going to be quick, knowing that we've gone over time, but I think some of the things that are quite easy to do, no matter whether you're in a small or large organization, would be to think about in the job design. If you have the opportunity to work with people who are doing the actual job design, can you, or in your role as a TA professional, can you always question, can we offer this part-time? Has it got flexible working embedded? Time as a DE&I tool is very, very powerful and opens up the talent pools, you know, significantly. I have a feeling you guys know all this already, but for speed, what I thought I would do is pop in the chat a link to a free tool that we have called 25 Ways Your HR Work Delivers ESG Results. Because in that, you know, a lot of the S, for example, the social in particular, speaks to different elements of inclusion, and then it talks about which function of HR might this be most relevant to, and it includes where that's TA. And perhaps it will give you ideas of actions. To Lewis's point earlier, that the path of how we will do all this work isn't clear. No one's finished. Nobody's got the blueprint. You know, until we achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, the world's to-do list continues. So I hope that will be a useful resource that will go into more detail than I have time for today, to share some ideas of real practical actions you can take to play your part in being as inclusive as possible in designing and recruiting your workforces.
No, that's really, really helpful. And I do love it when we get external views on it, because we don't always have the best reputation and we want to be better. We're people. We want to be better, but sometimes we need some help to do that. So thank you for sharing that. We're getting a lot of love for you as well, Cecilia. People saying they love what you do, picking up from there. So that's great. We've got the cheat sheet in there. I'll stick that in LinkedIn at the moment. I've kept up until now on LinkedIn, but we're a little bit behind. There is a comment, Glenn, let's get you on, because it is about you, that's just been posted over on LinkedIn, which will,
what did I say?
Boost before your last question. Wait till you see it. I'm loving it.
Oh yeah, well, thank you very much. Yeah, happy to receive the beard love.
There's some beard love going over on LinkedIn for you. Wonderful. Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I suppose this is all about what you do, and we did premise it earlier to say we were going to get onto it. So you take as long as you need to explain what is values-based hiring.
Well, I will be respectful of everybody's time and kind of give you look. There's an open invite for a kind of follow-on conversation if you want to learn more about values-based hiring. But essentially, and it links to definitely what Cecilia and Lewis have been talking about. So if you think about values of an organization, and I really don't understand why people refer to organization company, because it's the people, right? It's ultimately the people. The people make your organization company. So the values of the people, essentially, I mean, these can be moral, they can be behavioral, they can be linked to kind of environmental or social purpose. But the key thing is they shouldn't just be words on a website. Don't start values washing. So as Lewis said and Cecilia said, right, people will find out whether those values actually are real through things like Glassdoor, different feedback sites, etc. Right? So don't values wash. Don't just say, oh, these sound really punchy and great on a job description on our website, right? So really take the time to define and really kind of articulate your values, but more importantly, understand them. Right. So even if you end up with one value that you understand, you can define, articulate, and understand, that's a good starting point. That's a starting point for a values-based interview. And within that particular context, what you're looking to do is try and really understand the individual that you're interviewing. Not projecting your values onto them and asking them to repeat your values and why they're great. You want to try and understand if there's a values alignment. So you start from the point of view of the individual. What are their values? Do they understand their values? What's important to them, both personally and professionally? How do they overlap? How does that align to, how does that complement or align to your values? But equally, you need a structure to be able to assess that qualitative or quantitative. It can't just be subjective. It can't be, Lewis is a really cool guy. I like the way he comes across. He's got great energy. We like energy as a value. Done. Now, that's fine. That's a starting point, but we need to explore, where does his energy come from? Why is it important to him? How does it motivate him? How does that motivation link into his productivity? You need that understanding. So just as a very quick example, we had one of our previous clients, one of their values was pioneering. So very broad, but ultimately what they meant to them is change within an industry that needed changing. So we had a pre-screening interview, 6 questions. We gave the interviewees all of the questions in advance. We wanted them to come to the interview fully prepared, ready to discuss, really open. The first question was, what is the biggest single challenge in this particular industry? And if you were given budget, time, and a team, what would you go for? Now that opens up a really broad conversation, but actually what we're looking for within that, and I had to write this down because I had to come back to it. We're looking to understand, one, the depth of the answer. So, kind of what's their thinking, their logic, etc. How they approach new ways of working, what their thoughts are around technology innovation, change, taking people on a journey of change, and then working with changing regulation and legislation. So that was the basis, the scoring matrix behind that question. But what we did, we actually at the end of it had, we were able to quantify whether there was a values alignment based on our pioneering value. And I think that was the really key thing. And as I said, for us, we could make a decision, is there a values alignment based on data points? But equally, by virtue of sharing the question in advance with the interviewee, it gave them time to really think about what that meant for them. Don't just spring these values-based questions on people when they come into an interview like, hey, what do you think about, high energy motivation or target-driven environments? You're just like, and to your point, Lewis, right? Somebody that identifies as neurodivergent will need that time to prepare. They'll need that time to kind of process. You can't just hit them with all this information in one particular short, maybe 45 to 60-minute interview. So values-based hiring it has its value as long as you approach it in the right way. And it does require work as you, as an organization, are looking to hire, to really understand and articulate and define what that is, to create a scoring matrix that can actually give you data-driven, should I say, decision making.
I'm so glad I met you, Glenn, because I've been pushing this to my clients for 21 years now, my company. So it was part of the interview process. It was part of making sure that they hired someone not just on their skills and abilities, but are they actually going to be a positive for your business, and are your business going to be a positive for them? It works both ways. Well,
Cecilia will tell you, individuals that genuinely their values aligned to sustainability, right, are far more motivated in their role. And if they're far more motivated in their role, they are far more productive.
What we want, it's what we all want, isn't it? Wonderful. Yay. We'll finish
Yay to all of us.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness, there is so much to go back on this one and to pick out. We'll be downloading it and it will go into our Ask the Coach session as well, with all the resources and the links as well, so you'll always be able to get it. So if you're not in the gym at the moment, if you've not got a free account, come and join the 3,000 other people that are part of our community where we share all of this information for you. Thank you so much, coaches. I've loved that. There's been so really diverse conversations as well, but all of them real value to what we do. So thank you. Yeah, we've got some lovely comments there. People saying great session. You're all amazing. Thank you for sharing your brain power. Love that. Wonderful. Have a great weekend, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.